Karen.
Yes.
That was different. You can't do that. You can't throw me like that.
Yes, Will.
Hey, today's question from me to you.
Mm-hmm.
In your estimation, would you say that you found your true self?
Depends on the day you ask.
Wow. How about today?
Not today.
Well, then how about inner peace of mind?
Again, depends on the day you ask.
Uh-oh, not today?
What's a woman's prerogative to change her mind?
I think it's anyone's prerogative, male or female. Let's not limit ourselves there. Well, today's guest may be just what we both need to help us find both.
Perfect.
He's the author of Seedling, The Journey to Inner Peace, and he's here today to show us how to channel the power of nature to help us heal and recover from stress. It's time to put away whatever you have going on right now and listen, because learning how to react from a place of love rather than fear is what this episode is all about. Welcome to the Skeptic Metaphysicians. My name is Will.
And I'm Karen.
And unlike Mulder and Scully,
we both want to believe.
So we've embarked on a journey of discovery.
We've talked to people deeply entrenched in the spiritual and metaphysical world.
We've thrown ourselves into weird and wonderful experiences. I even joined a coven of witches.
And wait, you joined a coven?
Yep, all in the interest of finding something.
Anything.
That will prove that there's something beyond this physical,
three-dimensional world we all live in.
This is the Skeptic Metaphysicians. Hi, I'm Will.
And I'm Karen.
And this week's main topic finds us well accompanied by Daniel Mirfield, a renowned healer and mentor from the UK. Daniel is the author of Seedling, The Journey to Inner Peace, which fuses ancient wisdom with modern times to help us navigate and overcome even the most challenging moments by listening to our intuition, staying grounded, and being aligned and centered, all while reacting from a place of love rather than fear. Daniel, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
This is a topic that's near and dear to both of our hearts because we seem to constantly be finding and losing and finding and losing and finding and losing our inner peace.
So true.
So why is it so hard these days to hang on to that inner peace?
Well, it's a broad question, but it comes down to energy and the processing, the internal understanding of who we are. So the value we hold for ourselves is typically conditioned or at least driven by an alternative energy. So we never truly find or truly understand who we are and the decisions we make because of the motive behind the control, which controls us.
So it's an energy. And can you elaborate on that? Because I know we've all heard many, many times that we are energy. Now we know we're bombarded all the time by different types of energy, whether it's the media or social media or our kids or our friends or our family. We're always bombarded by energies. And so Karen and I try to meditate in the mornings and try to generate a positive type of energy. But is that what's happening? Is that the negative energies are overcrowding our positive energies?
So the energies that you're describing are a logic-based reality. That is the world that we've created. And well, there's a world outside that world. So our history of previous lives or our history of just our family has a certain type of influence in the way that we behave. The energy from the stars influences the way that we behave. So when we go to our communities or rules and regulations, they're formed on logic, and that is the 8 or 9% of the brain that we 100% use all the time. So to expand our consciousness, we have to start understanding the other energies that drive the way that we evolve. So, for example, just one off the bat, if your parents were struggling during the time that you were born, the transfer of energy can indicate that you can be living your parents' storms through large portions of your life and not actually knowing who you are. So by understanding energies, we can start to break down and know what's our energy and what's other people's energies. And it's not just our parents. There's influential figures within our life the whole time that we are learning, and depending on how they influence us depends on how we absorb that energy. So if you think of logic performs under two conditions: efficiency and control, or the efficiency to control. but your mental health status is outside those parameters. So when we look to energy and the energies that complete us, it is that over 90% or that 90 odd percent of our embodiment that we don't touch into is within that process, our identity. And people can go their whole lives without understanding their identity, because we've attached their identity is their purpose. And because of the way that the whole world now is structured, particularly the Western society, is that it's a materialistic world, and it's been built up over thousands of years, but it holds this stamp of control. And when we look at healing, and I look at healing the deepest of wounds within the mind, and that is the history of what completes us, it is outside the parameters of control. So control does not allow inner peace. It allows a format that what we can do innovative programming and building stuff, and it's an essential part of our life, but it is not our life, because we've committed 100% to it. We believe it is our life. It's a cycle which we can easily get stuck in.
So if we're trying to gain and maintain that inner peace, and Will and I were talking about how it's like one day it feels like it's there, then it's gone. It's just that wanting to control it, what's making it impossible for us to maintain it?
That's right. Because your reaction is to control every situation. And it is the release of control that brings those additional freedoms within your embodiment. And when we look to nature, we are part of this planet, and it is nature that's our guide. So the balancing principles of nature means that everything is unique and individual to the energetical imprint that holds it. But it never controls, it rebalances. And we have to look to ourselves, and we have to look to nature and see our silhouette walk into nature to have that rebalancing aspect within our lives. So, for example, the way that we attach energy is that we can easily keep repeating the same problems because we're looking to control the situation. So, for example, the way that the control's created is it puts a theme, and that theme typically is through fear, stress, anxiety, anger, and it implements that idea within someone's mind. And until a moment of weakness is present, that moment that will stay dormant until it's ready to attach it to your reaction. So if you're going for a bit of a downward spiral, and your reaction is that control will take over, indicate the way that you actually kind of drive your reaction, and you're reattaching your empowerment to the emotion of control. So all you do is keep repeating it, disempowering your ability to think for yourself. And this is where communities can easily get out of a spiral. And so I'll take a 2 steps back. The energies of the planet are changing, and our mental health, especially over the next 2 decades, is a critical step, because the way that we used to adapt to our innate ability to the planet is changing. We can't naturally do it anymore. We have to look within ourselves, and it all starts within the mind space. And because we keep attaching control, disempowering ourselves to someone else's storm, we're going to feel the effects of it, because the planet won't let us adapt like we used to adapt.
So you are talking about the energy of the planet's changing. So I guess it's an energy question. If you are able to increase your vibration, that vibration of your energy, will it stay? Is it like a body in motion stays in motion, or do you have to continually feed it those higher energy pushes? I don't even know what you would call that. Do you understand what I'm asking?
I'd say pushes. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, and that's one of the principles of life. We never stay the same. We are always changing and adapting. So within our mind space, and especially when you go through spiritual awakenings, we realign, we readjust, and we readapt. And especially healing, you could readjust your opinion a dozen times until you get back onto the path that you're meant to be on. And because we're that control base that's forced upon us, it can push us off our path or detour us to such a degree that we can spend years just trying to get back on that right path again. So the frequencies, as we adapt, within the planet, this moment, if we're in this planet on this moment in time, it is special, and it's a privilege, because moving aside about energies, the planet itself now is losing its magnetic field. So we are controlled by the sun. So the sun is adding enormous amounts of gamma rays and stuff every day, and the frequencies in which the planet operates is changing because it's trying to defend itself or trying to evolve. And going back onto your question where you're trying to push it, we have minimized our growth or minimized our potential, and we don't realize the power that lies within us because we don't understand that 90% of us, and that 90% adapts naturally. It removes the control and finds a higher consciousness of peace. And within that peace finds your identity. So everything that runs through the mind affects your health, the way that you heal, the conversations you hold, the positions you put yourself in, the value you hold for other people, the respect across two conversations. And because we lock ourselves up in that safe room through the logical control, we don't allow people to be at peace. That is the breaking point. And that, especially over the next 2 decades, that is what will stop people from healing, or stop people from making the correct decisions, or stop people from just being able to be present and comfortable within their own mind.
So you've mentioned the importance of the next 2 decades now twice, and I'm hesitant to ask you why. I think I know, but in your words, why are the next 2 decades so darn important?
This is only a foresight I've had a few times, and I've had it, and I'm happy to go into parts of the picture, not all of it, but the planet's going to reset, and I got the words 38, and I don't know if it's 38 years from now or the year 2038, but within my vision, and I've had this a few times, and it keeps coming back up. I'm looking at a mountain. I'm in this valley. I'm looking at this mountain, and I put my hand in my pocket, and I pick out a pocket watch, and I see the time, and it's bang on 12 o'clock every time, bang on 12 o'clock. And I look up to the mountain, and I look down, and it changes to a compass, and this compass just spins and spins and spins and spins. And to cut the vision short, the planet changes, and that is why this moment, it is about the individual. There is no one size fits all. It is about your purpose, your mental health, your ability to be at peace, and to create communities that aren't driven by materialistic or greed or whatever we've created within ourselves, but about seeing the larger part of life and understanding the planet. So that's why I say over the next 2 decades, the world's going to change, and it's going to change for the better, but we have to start by being present and acknowledging who we are.
Wow. I agree wholeheartedly with a lot of what you're saying. My concern or my question is, do we have critical mass enough to make the necessary changes in time? You look at the division in the world, you look at people who don't even believe that climate change is real, for example. Yes, I understand the importance of finding our own inner peace in our own true selves. But if others aren't doing that also, can we make a big difference just by changing ourselves?
When you look at it on a scale of how, for example, the world is operating at the moment, it is operating with no identity for the individuals. It is operating on a scheme that this is how it is, and this is how we operate, and that is not life. So when you bring your attention back to the individual and put the choices within communities and put the choices within the place they call home, the energetical imprint of the planet, change happens, and change happens for the better because they make the correct decisions. They put themselves in positive spaces. They respect the planet. So and that is one thing about control. You can never change someone else. So no matter how much you try and you want to change someone, it is against the free will and the principles of life to try and change them. So what's happening at the other side of the world really is none of our business, because our attention should be brought to the place that we call home. And it starts with every individual person on this planet identifying who they are. So when we create motives, like the planet with, like you mentioned, climate change, that is a constant cycling of how the planet rebalances itself. It's happened for hundreds of millions of years, and it will carry on happening long after we're gone. So we have to stop creating narratives or fear within narratives where we're too busy putting all our attention to the other side of the planet and not actually appreciating the life that we have right here, right now. And you'll find that once one country changes and sees a change, the energetical imprint or influential energy becomes contagious. And we have to know that it's not our position to control anybody else, but to influence ourselves in a positive manner.
And I like what you said about it becoming contagious. And we've seen that a little bit. Like we've talked about recently in the last few months, like people want to hang out with us a lot.
Yes.
I don't know. It's kind of weird. But I think that's kind of what happens. You start to, get this piece or, I don't know, sense of oneness within yourself, and it shines out and it's attractive. Those energies attract other people, and it helps change their energy.
Yeah, for sure. But I guess to call me negative or
Negative.
pessimist or whatever, but wow, there's just, yes, you and I have felt the effects, and we will continue to move in this direction because it feels right for us and for hopefully the world. It's just so difficult to imagine that finding our peace and on our true north, so to speak, will influence some of these dramatic happening in this country right now. It's just hard to imagine that. And I think, to Daniel's point, I think we just have to take it on faith that it will be enough to make a difference.
I mean, even if you just think of some of the reviews that we've gotten from some of the people that are listening and saying, "Oh, I never thought about this that way." I mean, that's the start, and just kind of feeding that along. I mean, it's not gonna work unless you try. I mean,
right.
You got to start somewhere.
Right.
You just like to see things happen right away.
I do. I'm very
Patience,
impatient.
little grasshopper.
Yes, I can't. I just, I'm trying. Maybe if I find my inner peace, I'll be able to become
and
more
maintain
patient.
it.
Yeah.
So I want to get back to something that you said earlier. If you're born into a situation where your parents are undergoing a lot of stress, and I know that was the case for me, I know that was the case for Will, and somewhat it was the case for our daughter. How can you help someone who has not realized the impact that those energies have had on them throughout their lives?
And that is the, not trying to link things, but that is the start of my book. So these energies that run through our embodiments, we don't understand them. We don't even recognize them, and they can be driving our actions to certain degrees of control, and we're powerless to even even appreciate ourselves. And when we look at energy, and especially the transfer of energy from let's say a conversation. Let's just break it down to a simple conversation. When you're in a weak position and you have a mindset of negativity, you project a lot. So you kind of throw your energy and attach that moment of fear, that control, because you lack control within your life. You believe the way to act, and this is where the community comes in, or the culture comes in, where this is how we gain control from others. We attach that energy, and if we lack control, we must take their control. And especially when you're born. So, for example, the energies of your parents and the status of their mind is within your reality. So you know more about your mum than your mum knows about your dad, and vice versa. So you have every memory that they have within their lives running through you. But their status of control within that moment, if they're feeling weak and they're trying to take other people's power, that storm or that reality is transferred across onto your embodiment. And it influences you in a manner that you never can really touch in and connect in with your soul. It minimizes that purpose, that kind of that relationship, or even that bond. So people can potentially born into a world where their soul has reduced the communication to such a fine line because of the mental trauma or anger that has been placed upon your embodiment through the transfer of energy from your parents. And So jumping back onto healing, and one technique of healing that I use is that we always look to the source. The source holds the power to release that burden from you. So, say for example, you have a certain kind of relationship with either your mom or your dad, and there's always been this kind of underlying issue and tension, but you're not really sure what it is. Well, the power of the story or the history within that moment can release the burden from your energetical alignment of control. So let's say an event happened and one of your parents has never recovered from it, and they've carried that the whole time, and then during the pregnancy that was triggered again, and that was attached onto you, or their mental status through fear was attached onto you. Listening to that story has the power to release the energetical control from your embodiment. Because what you're doing is you're identifying the energy and then identifying it within your embodiment and knowing that it's not natural to who you are. And that is just, there's many different scenarios, but the source holds the power to release that motion. So when we and conversations and talking and being honest are very basic but essential principles to knowing your identity and someone else's identity. It's a web of integrated energies, and it's not just that one. But as we move forward now, and as we kind of look to our mental health, it is going to be a topic for every single person on this planet, because talking about one way why it happens is that we put the economy and the materialistic wealth before people's mental status. So when you look at the whole world, especially the last 100 years, the way that it's accelerated, the way that technology is accelerated, for that to happen, 95 or 90, a high percentage of people have to stay weak within their minds. They have to freely give away their empowerment. They can't achieve more than certain aspects within this lifetime. They have to compromise or give away certain elements of their life to feed this machine. And when you feed this machine, you can see it for every single generation. When it's evolved, it's attached to families, and that families carries it on, and it evolves, and it changes, and it adapts. So the way that we move forward now to help this mental space is that we cannot put the economy before mental health. They can be in balance together, and they can grow together. But the moment that you put the economy first, the moment that you're compromising every single person's mental health.
You are touching on some points that I think are going to magnetize some people one way or the other. And I understand where you're coming from. And I have to say, I echo a lot of your sentiments. However, most of the people in this country, maybe not so much. We need to take a break. But this conversation's just now starting to really, truly heat up. When we come back, we're going to talk to Daniel about how to identify the source of negative energies and how to release them as we journey towards healing. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the fact that maybe, just maybe, democracy, maybe most forms of government, may not be offering us the freedoms that we think. Right after we get back. Welcome back to the Skeptic Metaphysicians. We're talking to Daniel Mirfield, who is here all the way from New Zealand. He's originally from the UK, but he's in New Zealand now. He's the author of Seedling, The Journey to Inner Peace. And we are talking about energies and how they could hurt us or help us, and how we need to take personal responsibilities for releasing some of these energies. And right before we left, we were talking about something that was a little polarizing. Daniel, you were talking about the fact that really, up until now, still, we are putting the economies of our countries in front of our mental health. And that maybe is not the way to sustain ourselves moving forward. You also move a little bit further in saying that possibly democracy and maybe most forms of government really don't offer the freedoms that we think it does. Can you expand a little bit on that?
Absolutely. And it is the lie within the lie which keeps evolving. So when we look to the source and how energy is created, or at least how events or time frames are evolved, is that when we look back to the origins of democracy, the moment back in ancient Greek times, that the lords owned all the land. So they owned everything. They had the slavery, and they were they controlled every situation. They dictated what happened, and people's lives were controlled under the mental space of how they felt about them. So after the kind of the rebellion happened and all this bloodshed went on, and the voice was created, the voice was created, but the way that they were controlled was still manipulated by the lords, and it just they changed the way they operated. So when we look at how you start life events, it's about the principles that you offer. So if it was going to evolve properly, the lords would have given their power completely up. They would have given everything that they had and put it across the people, and that is the proper form of democracy. It is not who owns the most money, who owns the most land, who has the most control over people. It is the status of understanding life within that community and how people see the world, what principles they hold. But because the way that democracy was formed and the energy that was attached to it, it has just evolved the way that other people control others. So if you think of how technology's evolved over the last 100 years, every time it's evolved, they've evolved to control through certain manners. They've controlled to manipulate and influence and kind of direct people into certain pathways. If it's through advertising or a fear-based control or kind of minimizing your freedoms or choices. So when democracy kind of created this you have a voice, it can be heard. It's heard to the extent until they want to control you. And that is not freedom. That is outside our mental space. So as we're progressing through life, and I can give you an example of so if you look at a country, and they shouldn't be ruled by one kind of chamber or principle, because the energies of the planet are unique to that individual location. So what happens in one location doesn't happen in another location. It is unique. It is divinely attached, and the frequencies always change wherever you go. So if you were going to have a democracy, it would only be relevant to the local area. Because within that area, within that energy, within that kind of frequency that they hold and the way that they operate and the culture that they have is not going to be the same a couple of states down or the other side of the other coast. And so to make a decision for everyone means that you're driven by a higher factor of control and maybe a naivety to think that you know what is good for everyone, even if it's a place that you've never been. So when we look at our identity and we look at our purpose within this lifetime, it is about the relationship with the planet. It's about understanding our values. It's understanding core principles. So democracy was created on the foundations of deceit and control, and it has only evolved since then. So your voice never matters if the outcome is always decided before you vote.
I think you're asking for a lot from especially this country. Which I would love to have the people in power be willing to give it all up. Sadly, now we're talking about capitalism, and capitalism doesn't allow for that to happen, unfortunately. So we've interviewed a few people that have actually said that all of the institutions have to come crashing down completely. They have to fail completely before we can rebuild something that is better. And the more you look around, the more you realize that maybe some of these things are happening. I think we may need to just tear it all down, start from scratch. Now, you've also said that the best way to heal is to connect with nature as much as possible. What do you mean by that exactly?
So when we look at ourselves and our kind of core principles or the values that we hold, everything that we are is within nature. So the energies that ground us, the energies that lift our vibrational alignment, the energies that heal us, every knowledge or wisdom that we need to just to be at peace is present within nature. So the way that we balance ourselves, the way that we hold ourselves, the way that we have principles within life, and we notice the circle of life. And the circle of life, people see this and they get emotionally charged because they don't realize the power or the wisdom and the blessings that actually display themselves by just being able to know that you are part of something bigger, and you are part of this collective consciousness that supports you and aligns you to a greater amount of growth. But if we ignore that, we're ignoring our own purpose. The energies of the planet are our consciousness, the vibrational alignment that holds the meaning of life itself. So there's that much available. So, for example, the planet provides all the healing herbs and the vegetation. It provides all the renewable energies and the concepts of the kind of this going through the seasons. So as it goes through the seasons, you only have to be present to know that as it goes through the seasons, you go through the seasons. So not one season is the same. So by acknowledging nature and acknowledging the values that it holds, you can bring that awareness into your aura, understand yourself, and know that, and this is a topic, we're meant to get colds. It makes us stronger. We're meant to feel pain. It helps us heal. We're meant to go through these cycles and know that within every moment there's knowledge, and it's how we anticipate and appreciate that knowledge that we can grow as a person, we evolve, and that is all present within the planet, within nature.
And it is true. We're so strongly connected to the planet. I mean, think about, Will, if you're stressed and you go to the beach and you listen to the waves, or take a walk in the forest and you're surrounded by, the trees and the breeze flying, through the leaves. It's so calming and so soothing.
Yeah. And what I like about what he's saying is it goes much further than just take off your shoes and walk around in the soil. It's about aligning yourself with the rhythm of nature, the rhythm of life. And that's something that you're right. We're forcing our will onto nature versus the other way around, or flowing with nature. Native American shamans talk about all the time about being one with nature. And we're a disposable culture where Native Americans and folks that are much more aligned with nature knew how to maximize their relationship. And that's a beautiful thing, and something that we need to get a lot closer to, because I fear for our planet if we don't. So then, Daniel, how can we identify these energies? It's nice to say we've got to align ourselves better with nature and things like that, but how do we take that step forward, getting away from where we are now and being more closely aligned with nature?
Especially now that we live in such an unnatural society, in the big cities, and driving the cars and eating everything out of plastic and microwaves and all of that. How do we change that?
Yeah, good question. And that's so when we look at healing and we look at all the energies that are present within our embodiment and our lifetime, all memories and the kind of events that we've experienced, we have to bring our awareness to being in the moment. So that moment, so that when you bring your awareness to being in the moment, we have to define the difference between feelings and emotions. So that a society driven on fear is emotionally driven. It has no control over how they feel. So when we look to simple principles of who we are, we have gifts. We hear, we see, we smell, we touch, we feel. So the five principles that we take for granted. But these gifts, these feelings, they bring a different awareness to our surroundings. And when you minimize your usage of your potential, and every decision you make is emotionally charged, it just repeats the same repetitive actions over and over again. You're attaching that motion of control to someone else's storm, and you have no value for yourself. So by engaging in your feelings, you're being present, and you're just being aware of what's happening around you. And you might say, well, I'm going to minimize all my feelings and I'm just going to listen. And there's power in listening, even if it's your story or someone else's story. Or I'm just going to sit outside and observe. I'm just going to watch. I'm just going to feel those energies. I'm going to express myself. I'm going to form an outlet that I can talk about the way I feel, talk about what I see and describe it, or talk about what I hear. So when we're re-engaging in our gifts, our feelings, we are just starting to create this and recreate this bond, this relationship with ourselves, because it's our aura that detects the energies. But if we've lost touch with our feelings, our aura dissipates. It just allows everything to come in. But if you're re-engaging your feelings and not being driven by emotions, you are then forming this line of communication, and all of a sudden you're lifting your vibrational alignment at the same time. So this is the very first step that I would encourage everybody to do, because once you start building on this relationship, you then start going, well, hang a second, I'm feeling something different here. And then you start to work out the energy that's driving those actions and go, hang on, no, that's not my energy. I'm just going to sit back and I'm just going to listen, or I'm just going to observe, or I'm going to sit in it for a day and know how I feel. And because it's all part of rebuild and the regrowth and the spiritual alignments or the enlightening processes. And then all of a sudden your mind will go, oh, this line of communication, it started to grow. It started to evolve. And I have a chance to let me know, or her know, or whoever know, that I've got a message for you. And then you start evolving, and you start seeing the world in a different concept. So the very first stage, I would say, know the difference between feelings and emotions and build on that relationship.
This is just the very tip of the iceberg out of your book, which I'm 100% going to be getting now after this conversation, because it's left so many more questions and answers. It's called Seedling, The Journey to Inner Peace, and it is absolutely fascinating. This conversation is something that I never, ever expected to talk about, but it's such an important topic to discuss. So, absolutely. Daniel, it's been wonderful getting to talk about this with you, getting your expertise, your wisdom about all these energetic topics. We're going to add direct links to your website and to your book and all your platforms. So if someone wants to reach out to you directly, you can go to just skepticmetaphysician.com and hit his episode page. You'll see all of those links directly laid in there. This has been a wonderful conversation. We really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for sharing this space with me.
Well, thanks for coming along on this journey of discovery with us. We'd love to continue our conversation with you on our website at skepticmetaphysician.com or on Facebook and Instagram under Skeptic Metaphysician Podcast. If you know someone who would benefit from hearing the messages we're sharing on the show, do them and us a favor and share the show with them. It will help get the word out about us, and it may just change someone's life for the better. And if you're listening to this on the radio and you missed something, well, not to worry. All of our shows, including this one, can be found at skepticmetaphysician.com, where you can also watch the videos or even send us an email or voicemail directly from the site. We absolutely love feedback and would appreciate hearing from you. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this episode as much as we have. That's all for now. We'll see you on the next episode of The Skeptic Metaphysicians. Until then, take care.